Welcome to the Scottish Rite Journal podcast, an audio presentation of the Scottish Rite Journal, brought to you by the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite, Southern Jurisdiction, Mother Supreme Council of the World. This week's article is Duel at Buena Vista, 1847, by M. Christopher Lee, 32nd degree, and comes from the May-June issue of the Scottish Rite Journal. The story presented here is a dramatic reimagining of a historic event that occurred on July 29, 1847, near Fort Smith, Arkansas, between future Sovereign Grand Commander Albert Pike and Colonel John Selden Roane. The twin pistol cracks reverberated over the river, startling the early morning birds into flight and spooking the July insects into an unaccustomed silence. The rustling flow of the Arkansas River filled the momentary gap in cadence as nature gradually regained its footing. With smoking pistols clenched in outstretched hands, the gentlemen combatants, both returning home after the expiration of their one-year terms as Army officers, stared across the dueling field at each other. With his dark locks swaying in the breeze, Albert Pike rubbed at a small, almost imperceptible part at the side of his beard. It may have been the result of the wind, or perhaps the comet-like passing of a small but deadly lead ball. A scattered group of spectators, including several Cherokee, murmured softly to one another. The men's seconds rushed in, taking charge of the weapons and inspecting them for damage, misalignment, and other defects. Pike, 37, set himself down on a driftwood log beside the thick overgrowth on the upstream side of the bar. His surgeon, Dr. James Dibrell, stovepipe hat cutting through the morning wind like a sail, sat beside him. Nearby, William H. Cousin, Pike's friend and subordinate officer in the war, Pat Farrelly, and Dr. T. Thurston, whom Pike would eulogize almost 40 years later, looked on, a mixture of relief and concern reflected on their creased brows. On the downside of the bar, John Selden Roane, former Arkansas State House representative and Captain Albert Pike's superior officer in the recently concluded Mexican War, consulted with his seconds and surgeon. The seeds of this duel were planted on the Buena Vista battlefield and editorialized in the pages of the Little Rock Gazette and the Little Rock Banner. Rumors spread, giving birth to slander. Slander was thrown down like a glove, and a challenge was made. The challenge was accepted. The old forms were followed. Pistols at 10 paces, a distance from which neither man could fail to hit his target. The dueling ground was a large sandbar in the Arkansas River north of Fort Smith. It was actually more of an island than a sandbar, overgrown with thick summer vegetation. The bar was Cherokee land, since dueling was punishable by the rope in Arkansas. Dr. Philip Burton, Roane's surgeon, approached Pike and Dibrell. Burton beckoned to his fellow surgeon. The 31-year-old Dibrell exchanged glances with his charge and then went to Burton, leaving Pike alone with his thoughts. Pike had been critical of the training and selection of the officers for the Arkansas Mounted Volunteer Rifles, affectionately known as the Arkansas Mounted Devils or Yell's Mounted Devils. Before the call, Pike had spent almost 4 years as an artillery captain in the state militia, the most experienced officer in the newly forming unit. He was elected captain of his squadron and nominated for colonel at the regimental elections in Washington, but lost the election to former Governor Archibald Yell, who resigned his seat in Congress to enlist in the fight, a brave man but lacking military experience. John Selden Roane was elected lieutenant colonel of the unit. Roane also lacked formal training for the position he held. Yell's lack of training and failure to drill his men properly on the march to Mexico proved almost disastrous at the Battle of Buena Vista. Yell found himself the target of a deep thrust by Santa Anna's forces on the United States Army's extreme left flank near Buena Vista Ranch. Yell ordered his men to fall back out of enemy artillery range and to prepare for a charge from Santa Anna's mounted lancers. His undisciplined men, however, not understanding the nature of the tactical retreat, continued to fall back, some as far as Saltillo. Yell managed to rally a portion of his men, but was outnumbered 4-1. General Zachary Taylor ordered reinforcements, including Pike's squadron, which had been detached from the mounted devils, to fortify Yell's position, but Yell was killed in the fighting. Despite the brave but poor performance of the Arkansas Mounted Volunteer Rifles, the day was carried, but the circumstances of the battle, along with some unsavory events on the road to Mexico, ruffled Pike. He fired off a letter to the Little Rock Gazette. In his usual straightforward manner, Pike criticized the Mounted Rifles, laying blame for the debacle squarely on the shoulders of the brave but unexperienced officers. Roan felt personally attacked and dishonored by his former subordinate. He and his allies spread rumors that Pike had criticized the men's bravery during the battle. Pike answered the charge by demanding a court of inquiry, which cleared him. Yet unbeknownst to Pike, Roan and Captain Edward Hunter had already dispatched letters to the Little Rock Banner accusing Pike of not even being at the Battle of Buena Vista, which was a slanderous lie. The gauntlet was cast. Now the former allies held positions on opposing ends of the bar, each contemplating the other's fate. Although both were excellent marksmen, neither man had been hit in the first 2 volleys. Dr. Dibble returned from his conference and relayed Dr. Burton's proposition on how to end the hostilities. Pike thought it over. "I want one more shot at him," he said, "and I will hit him in a vital part. I believe he has tried to kill me. I have not tried to hit him." After several moments, Pike said, "Do as you think proper about it, but do not by anything compromise my honor." Dibble consulted with Burton, and Burton with Roan's seconds. Burton returned with the verdict. "I am happy to say that I am authorized by Mr. Roan's second, Mr. Rector, to state that our principal, who was the challenging party, has declared himself as having received entire satisfaction." "That being the case," Dibble responded, "as Mr. Pike's surgeon, I suggest that these 2 brave and honorable gentlemen shake hands." Pike stood resolutely and waited for Roan to cross the battlefield to him. He accepted Roan's hand. Then, within the space of a few minutes, the 2 combatants, along with their friends and seconds, were conversing as if at a social gathering. They boarded boats, returned to Fort Smith, and that night convened a banquet, followed by a night of beverages and good fellowship, their duel already a fading memory. Like and share this article, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you wish to comment, please leave one, and as a reminder, hit the notifications bell. Any accompanying photographs or citations for this article can be found in the corresponding print edition. The Scottish Rite Journal is published by the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite, Southern Jurisdiction, Mother Supreme Council of the World. Mark Dreisenstock, 32nd degree, KCCH, Managing Editor. I'm your host, Matt Bowers.